Hey, I've got another one for you. Hey, I'll top that with a bad story. Once upon a time, there was a community that was 20 years old with a visionary spiritual founder who was a community elder and was revered for her spiritual integrity and her spiritual power. My God, her third eye practically radiated out of her head when you walked into a dark room. You could use her little flashlight. She had so much community power and influence. And each time a group was nudging themselves, let's say this is a decision, each time they were nudging themselves up towards a decision and they were about to make a decision, they were about to make it, she would say, I'm sorry, we can't decide that now because everyone is not here. And as you know, in Consensus, we welcome everyone's opinion in because Jack is, in Costa Rica right now. We have to wait till he gets back. And then the next time we're about to make a decision, and Jack is here now because he came back from Costa Rica. She goes, I don't think we can make a decision now because we haven't considered all of the aspects, characteristics, influence, potential realities, and possibilities in the past, the future, and for the next 7 generations. Finally, a guy figured this out. It took him 7 years living in the community to see this pattern because he was blinded by that third eye of her in the dark. She was so damn spiritual. Am I doing an oxymoron here? And he said, she's using manipulation to stop us from moving forward because I suspect she has fear of taking action. We always pass proposals when she's not here. We never do when she is. Do you know what they do? Not a cohousing community. Anybody could guess?
We voted her out.
Not exactly.
They made decisions.
They made a 90% for her out.
I'm hearing all these ideas. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say something different, but so we can finish this. I was just thinking that if you're going till 8:30, I'd like to hear.
Oh, you're gonna.
There.
Okay. What they did is had a meeting without her and decided together that they would ask her to step out of the decision-making circle and retire from active community life.
Wow.
I know. And what happened? Oh, she did. And their energy came back. Their vitality came back. Shortly after that, they got a nonprofit lawyer. I mean, he was a lawyer for nonprofits who specialized in helping nonprofits thrive. And he said, you're supposed to spend 10% of your time making the decision and 90% implementing it in a healthy organization, but your group has been spending 90% making decisions and only 10% implementing them if you ever even can.
Wow, I like that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I don't know if it's true, but that's what he told them. 90% implementation.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And 10% deciding. Okay. So, has anybody heard of or visited in-street cohousing in Davis, California?
Only heard of. I want to visit.
Yeah.
In street in where?
Davis, California, not so far from Sacramento. Anybody visited? Yay! Hello. I went on a holy pilgrimage to that place because they have a different decision-making method that they invented before they even got started. And here's how it works. They sit in a circle, they have a proposal, everybody passes the proposal, or some stand aside after they have modified it, just like what you know. Or somebody blocks. So this person has blocked the proposal. And the facilitator says, okay, Susie, you know our rules. You have up to 3 months and up to 6 small meetings with yourself and 2 other advocates or proponents of the proposal to have a series of solution-oriented meetings, up to 6, don't have to be 6, to come up with a new proposal that addresses your concerns and the whole issue we created the proposal for in the first place. So, please come up with a new proposal, and let's say that they do. Then proposal, and I'm going to make one of these deals. The next iteration of the proposal comes to the meeting, and chances are it'll pass, right? So they have efficiency, they have the ability to go forward. And if the blocker person will not or cannot, or the group cannot agree, what do you suppose comes back? The first proposal just comes back. There isn't another one. It comes back, And it passes with a what?
Vote?
A dissension.
75% supermajority. So, I asked Tree Bresson, who is considerably more radical than I am regarding equality, fairness, and the values of the 60s. And I said, she's a consensus trainer, and I said, Tree, do you like this? And she said, are you kidding? You learned about it on my website. And that's true. And she said, this is very responsible and honorable and respectful. First of all, it respects the person who blocks, because they have up to 6 months to convince people. 3 months. 3 months.
3 months.
3 months.
6 meetings.
You have up to 3 months to convince the other people formally and informally in the garden, in the laundry room, over dinner, that this was a bad idea. So you're really being honored. You're being respected. Your voice is being given an energy that says, hello, we hear you, we see you, we're listening to you. Use your powers of persuasion, your data, and your energy, and your everything. Just a sec, okay? And it's also really respectful to the people who wanted the proposal, because all they have to do is wish that person well, wish the groups well, and wait. Chances are very high that if the first proposal comes back, it'll be passed, because this person will probably not have convinced 26 or more %. I now call this the in-street consensus method. It does not include governance, but it is the decision-making method. That's one of 3 I now recommend. How many times in their 26 years have they ever had to do this? Twice. How many meetings did they have each time? 2. So they've had 4 meetings in 26 years to deal with this issue. Why does this work really well? The secret underneath reason.
Responsibility.
That's true, but why else? No, it's not. It's not they had the whole block now except for one corner. What's the reason this actually works? This is tricky and subtle. All of you psychologists, to put your psychological head to it. What?
Empowerment.
Or the reverse.
It empowers people who are willing to move forward, or the reverse.
It offers a...
You don't want to block, because
Because
if
you
you
know
block,
it
you have to do
exists.
all that work.
Because you know it exists.
Yeah.
It is a respectful deterrent to frivolous, personal, or too frequent blocking.
Yeah.
Yay, the Holy Grail! So, excuse me, I'm getting a little excited here. I love this method. Then I found 2 more I liked better.
Also, presumably, if it comes back, it's going to be better.
Yes.
I would
Right.
say it would
Right.
be, because
That little
respect
tweak. It would
and
have to
listening to each other is built into it. You had a comment. Okay. So we're in the home stretch. Do not despair. I learned about sociocracy
I
and
think
holacracy.
one thing about that, it's
I'm
not
gonna
just
call it-
about
but she interrupted.
not letting blocking, it stops blocking energy. When you know that a blocker can keep things from happening,
You don't even try.
all the energy goes into, it's like depression. There's no, it frees up the possibility of a solution.
Right.
It doesn't say what it will be, but you know there will be a solution.
Right.
Forward motion.
And that's what blocking takes away.
Right. And remember how we were taught that blocking allows everyone to have a voice? Remember how we were taught that blocking equals out the inequities of our culture, and those who are not articulate or who may not be confident can still stop what they think will harm the group because they have the power. Both Tree Bresson, community-based consensus trainer, and Caroline Estes, the grandmama of all the consensus trainers that I know of in the US except CT, say the power of blocking gives the person complete power over the group. They actually say that out loud. Have you ever heard anybody say that out loud? You've thought it, right?
Yeah.
So there's a phrase in the communities movement, tyranny of the minority. Sadly, it does happen. So my interest is in something that helps people come from the finest part of themselves, that covers governance as well as decision-making, And that gives us that lighthearted Taoist, we did it, wow, we're a wonderful community feeling after the meeting instead of how Laura has described feeling. So the two that I know about are sociocracy, which has another name, dynamic governance. Different people use different names. It's exactly the same thing. And holacracy, which look the same on the surface and are different underneath. And I've studied them both. So if you know a little bit about dynamic governance, holacracy is quite similar. It costs a whole lot of money to learn holacracy. There's a lot about it I like, and I borrowed one of its phrases that I use when I teach sociocracy or dynamic governance. I switched from teaching consensus to teaching sociocracy because while I was in my disillusionment with consensus with unanimity, I was also finding out there were newer ways where you could just be a regular human and do it, and you didn't have to be superhuman or somehow damn near enlightened and just like a community full of bodhisattvas. It could be just you and me or anybody. And you could have meetings where you go like this. So, my community took dynamic governance processes, has about 5 processes, each of which mutually beneficial reinforce the other. It's like a bunch of circles that mutually beneficially reinforce each other, and I want to tell you about 2 of them, okay? May I? Mm-hmm. One of them is called elections, and some communities call it selections. It's for officers. So I want to come back to that story I was telling you in the beginning. That story, we did selection of officers 2 years in a row, complete with all those awful feelings I described. This year we did the dynamic governance method because we gave ourselves permission to try a new thing for a year. Finally, says my friend and neighbor. She's been waiting over there in west part of the city, wishing that that place out there would get it together. And so people nominated somebody they wanted for the role, and we heard each person say who they nominated and why. And then we asked people to see if they wanted to change their nomination based on everything they'd heard. First, we started out with what are the tasks and the responsibilities of the role. How long would they be in the role? A year. That was called term length. And also we had what are the desired characteristics of the person in the role based on what they would have to do. It wasn't about, is Susie popular? Does everybody like Tommy? Would we be afraid not to elect Jackie because he would be so mean to us if we didn't? It's about stuff like real life, you know, desired characteristics based on what that role entails. We had a list of the responsibilities, a list of the desired characteristics. So we went around and heard people change their nominations, and some didn't change because they'd heard from the wisdom of the group. This was so much better than the most, let's see who said that, the most articulate and the most confident being the ones who ran the show because they were able to speak up quickly and loudly and articulately and run the show. We heard from every single person. A person could say pass. It was building energy in the room to do this. People were kind of going like this.
Because they're all saying all these wonderful characteristics and the good experience that they had with whoever they nominated as to why they're nominating that person. So whoever got nominated was hearing all this acknowledgement and wonderful stuff. So the whole selection or election process, instead of being about, you know, conflict and campaigning and putting down or anything like that, it's all about acknowledgement and matching up people and their characteristics and their skills and resources with the role.
Exactly. And it tended to make people get happy and high. I don't mean high like stoned, I mean high like delighted. Empowered, that's the word. They got empowered. After we did that, then we added a piece that dynamic governance has as an option, which was open discussion, but we turned it into questions. We just called it a question round. So the facilitator, who happened to be me at that time, just said, do you have a question? Any questions? No questions? Somebody had a question who said, listen, we've got 2 nominations, A and B. Could you do the job together? Somebody else says, we've got 2 nominations, A and B. A, if you did it, would be you still do all the tasks you're doing now and work closely with A. We were doing problem solving. in a positive, beneficial way. The next thing was the facilitator proposes a candidate. How come the facilitator has so much power to choose? Nope, not choose, propose. Because then we have to go and do what's called a consent round and see if everyone has no objection or an objection. So the facilitator, which was me, proposed A, with B, working closely with them, which is what the facilitator had heard in that thing. And people thought that was a good idea. And they either said no objection or pass. The people who wanted to do invective and character assassination were out-vibed that day by the goodwill in the room. They couldn't even get negative energy to get into their mouth. Can you imagine that? And so then we elected people and we were delighted, and that was just one little change we made. The others that we made were we drew from the in-street group and another group, and we fixed it so that when we had a meeting and somebody or somebody's blocked a proposal, we tested to see if we thought it was a valid block. Yeah. Almost every consensus trainer I know nowadays recommends this. Laird Shell shifted from what he used to suggest to totally recommending this all the time. Maiki Ludwig also. Carolyn Estes, the grandmama, she's 88. She says, you need to know that I've changed my opinion over the last 40 years because of how people tend to practice consensus in communities, and now I suggest that if somebody's blocked a lot or threatened to block a lot, that the facilitator disallow their block because they've used up their lifetime supply. This is a little joke based on recommended number of times you should block more in your whole entire lifetime. So then Tree Bresson says, well, let me point out that the Pacific Yearly Meeting of the Quakers, which yearly meeting means a congregation that meets once a year out in the West, said the facilitator, they call it a clerk. Anybody's a Quaker, you know the name of it. It's a clerk. The clerk can disallow a block if the person who's blocking has blocked a lot before. Can say, oh, I'm sorry, Hildegard, you blocked 4 times already and you've only been here 3 years, so we're going to disallow your block. So now we're checking again for the sense of the meeting. No, block's okay, we passed the proposal. And Hildegard just can't stop it. So what we did was we did this, and then we have an 85% people have to think the block is valid, and if only 84% think it's valid, then we don't have a block, we pass the proposal. But let's say we do have a valid block. Then we do the in-street thing, up to 3 meetings. We've got a kind of a double thing. And we wanted to have 75% supermajority for the original proposal to come back. All of us but 3 wanted that. We desperately wanted that. We have 3 people who block consistently for personal reasons and because they're envisioning a different community than the one we live in. They're trying to protect the community from bad things, and from the heart, deeply and powerfully, they want to save us from bad consequences. But they're envisioning us as doing different things than we're doing. And so it's difficult because we have different paradigms of reality. It's hard to talk about paradigms if you're in one. Try to talk to that fish about the sea. They don't know what the sea is. And so our most person who blocks most frequently from the heart and with a great deal of heartbreak told us that she would block this proposal unless it wasn't 75% supermajority, unless it was consensus minus 1. Well, we have 3 blockers. So that meant we couldn't really do what in-street does, but it's better than what we had. People are starting to have twinkles in their eyes again in my community. Young people are starting to come back to the meetings. This is a sign of hope. So I want to tell you one other thing about dynamic governance that I adore. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I sort of thought this was a piece of paper.
And so did somebody else.
That's witty. Great. Okay, thank you. Okay. here is dynamic governance elections, and you've just heard that described, which people feel free to do because they know that we're going to check to see if the person's doing their role in a way that we enjoy. Based on what? Measurable things. The criteria, the desired characteristics, and the tasks. Are they fulfilling the tasks? Do they exemplify the characteristics? Is there anything they could improve? Is there anything they could do better? What are they doing well? So we have this thing that I call role improvement feedback, but it really has another name, but I'm just going to call it that, which is how we help our people that we choose for roles. How we help them do better. It's a gift to them. It's a gift to get feedback and course correction early in the game so that they're not continuing to make the same mistake. I once got fired from RCA Telegraph in the 70s for misspelling Pittsburgh 30 times. But I spelled it the same way every time. They should have told me the first time I didn't spell it right. Okay, so there is a mutually reinforcing feedback loop like a really well-designed permaculture landscape, whereby you feel free to elect Jack or Susie to a role because you know that you can ask them questions later to make sure they understand the tasks and that they're treating it with the right attitude and skills and behaviors. And let's say that somebody is kind of wondering whether Susie will make a good, is there a Susie in the room and am I pushing on somebody's wondering whether Susie will do a good job because of this characteristic and this characteristic that they're wondering about. So here's what the group can do. Build into the criteria for the role improvement feedback these two things. Has Susie been able to deal with this kind of tendency? In my case, talking too fast, or this tendency? See? You just build your concerns into how you do the role improvement feedback. Susie gets to be a much better community participant, a much better person in the role, and our competence and confidence level goes up. All of us, not just Susie's. Here's another one that just makes me feel so good. When we're doing consensus decision making, and we have a proposal, we know that we can't change it easily later. Because if we did, it would take what?
Forever.
Forever. Does anybody know that famous painting by Ilya Repin, Barge Haulers on the Volga? You ever seen that photo?
Yeah.
It's a picture, a painting. Okay. Some people sometimes call it Volga Boatmen, but that's actually the name of the song. There's 11 guys bent over double with a rope this thick hauling a barge upstream in the Volga River because it didn't get upstream any other way except for 11 guys. They're like this. And the guy who painted it in 18-whatever got their expressions right. Well, that's kind of how you think of when you think, we got to get this right, because if we don't,
You're stuck with
we're stuck with it because it'll be so hard to change. And any consensus trainer will tell you, consensus is such a conservative method that you can't change things easily. And so, you better get that right. You'd better damn well get that right. This time it's got to be damn near perfect, which means that you have to predict the future and then control that predicted future with the damn perfect. See all this sweat dripping off of people? Blood, sweat, and tears because they got to get it just right. Ouch. You don't have to do that in dynamic governance. Here's dynamic governance. Here's the proposal. We're all sitting around here smiling because we know something. And in a second you will know it too, and maybe you already do. Here are the criteria with which we're going to evaluate it later. Now, would you please be a person who has a strong concern about this? This proposal, you just make up anything.
I don't like it, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, she just said she didn't like it because of the time length and the amount of money it would cost.
Yeah.
So our very first criteria here is this taking too much time, or is it the adequate amount of time? Do we need to change that time thing? And is it in the budget that we've set? Do we need to allocate more or revise our expectations so it doesn't cost so much? Look what we just did. We incorporated the benefits of her insight smack dab into the criteria, and then we set the dates. March 15th, April 30th, June 24th, that we will evaluate it. Our agenda planners stick it in their files. Their little reminder in their computer comes out, put that thing on the agenda, we have to evaluate it. We put it on the agenda, we spend 10 or 15 minutes evaluating this proposal that we passed according to the criteria that we decided on. Can we add criteria? Yep.
We change it, yeah.
Can we change the criteria? Yep. Can we throw one out? Yep. Can we throw the whole thing out because it's not working? Yep.
That's why it's called dynamic.
Yeah, because it's dynamic. And it's not set in stone, and it doesn't have to be quote damn perfect. Unquote. We don't have to sweat, we can smile. Okay, so it takes the pressure off of us. That puppy's going to be evaluated, and we know when. And we can add evaluations, and we can throw it out the window. We don't have to predict and control. We can evaluate and respond. We can let real life and reality guide our choices and become ever better at our governance, our decision making, and our learning what does and doesn't work. We can be dynamic and fluid and in the flow. We can have freedom to try stuff. We're not bamboozled, hoodwinked, hogtied, stymied, stuck, frozen, and cut off at the knees. Perhaps you're hearing my 5 years of frustration here. We actually don't have to make it perfect. It can be good enough for now. Because there's only a now, and then there'll be another now and another one. Or another way to put it is, it's safe enough to try.
Which encourages people to pass the proposal too, all of that does.
Because they have freedom to let and allow the learning process of trying it on, possibly tossing it or changing it, which gives the group more confidence, a feeling of we did it, and it's not in stone. We can change that thing. Okay.
We should probably wrap it up.
Well, I am ready.
Okay.
Not only that, not only we are evaluating it later on these dates, I'll make some clocks here. We had a whole lot of input into making it in the first place. We have a whole lot of input in changing it when we're approving it and considering it. And we have a whole lot of input later. That thing can't hurt us. We're using our creative intelligence, our co-intelligence, to observe it, modify it, try it, keep it, throw it out, change it. We're in charge, it's not. The proposal doesn't damn run our life. We run our life. That's why I love this method and why I teach it now. And that's why I have this great love for the communities that are trying it. And there are 2 communities that I know of trying it who are doing very well. And I'm studying them to learn how did you implement it. What is the method by which you got yourselves to even begin to try it, and then what things did you do first and second, and what did you learn? There's 2 other communities that I know of that are trying it, and they've run into some challenges, and I'm finding out, okay, what would you recommend groups not do? How can other groups learn from you? And what worked really well? So I'm trying to collect this data, and I send it to Jerry, because he's my pal and colleague in this work. So like any of you who might want to learn what I'm learning, you just forward any of it if you wish. So that's it. Don't want to keep you hostage, and I have for 9 minutes more than I meant to. I'm sorry. So I'm pretty much done. If anybody would like to stay and share comments or insights or ask questions, please do. And if anybody would like to leave, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.